The mutant menace Wolverine, otherwise known as James Logan Howlett, is said to have lived nearly 200 years. Throughout the many years he's walked the earth, this man has been through a lot, from getting ripped in half to being forced to kill everyone he knows and loves multiple times. He's seen, done, and pretty much been through everything. Logan may have issues remembering his past, but not to worry because we remember it all. Bringing every painful memory back, today we'll be ranking the top 10 worst things to ever happen to Wolverine, and just in time for his exciting arrival to the MCU. Number 10. Steamrolled. Starting off our list at the number 10 spot, we have Logan getting rolled over by none other than the Punisher himself. Yes, rolled over, aka ran over by a steamroller. However, that's not all the poor guy goes through. This painful and absolutely ridiculous image comes to us courtesy of the brilliantly messed up mind of Garth Ennis. Most commonly recognized for his now infamous series The Boys, Ennis has worked on numerous other series. In the absurd scene taken straight from his run on the 2001 Punisher series, Ennis very clearly displays his well-known hatred of superheroes, putting poor old Wolvie through a horrible series of events. The whole escalation starts when Logan and Frank are both in New York following leads to the same case. Knowing the MO of the culprit is cutting off their victims' legs and dragging them away, both heroes follow the blood. Wolverine arrives at the scene first to an empty warehouse. While hiding out waiting for whoever did this to show themselves, the Punisher enters the scene. Immediately, Wolverine believes this to be his doing and the two begin fighting. This is where things get messy for the poor mutant. First, Frank shoots the mutant in the face with his signature Dragon's Breath shotgun, melting Logan's face off. Although caught off guard by this, Wolvie does manage to get a couple of slashes in on Castle before he escapes to a nearby office. Leaping into the room to follow him, Logan is met with a baseball bat straight to his groin. Following this up, Castle begins to pour gasoline on the Canadian in hopes of lighting him on fire and slowing him down. Then maybe he could explain that this wasn't his doing. Before he can do that, however, the two men are interrupted by a local mob, the real owners of the place. After briefly working together to escape, Castle realizes that Wolverine and his latest attempt at a no-kill rule are getting in his way, so he pulls out his shotgun once more and shoots Wolvie's nuts clean off. After cleaning the place out, Castle returns to see the remaining members dead and Wolverine on the floor, swearing revenge on Frank as his legs begin to heal. Logan nearly got them hacked off by a group of mobsters. Knowing that the mutant will hunt him down for what he's done, Castle decides to give himself a head start, and does this by, you guessed it, running the guy over with a steamroller. As one final kick to the ego, Frank jokes on the way out, calling Wolverine a Pine Martin. Keep in mind that this is at the number 10 spot. The worst is truly yet to come. Number 9. Ripped in half. Staying in the spirit of hero versus hero, coming in at the number 9 spot is the Hulk ripping Wolverine into two. That's right, Big Jolly Green physically tore Logan's torso apart from his legs, something that shouldn't even be possible, but nonetheless still happened. Taking place in Marvel's Ultimate Universe, this fight between the Jade Giant and the old Knucklehead was obviously meant to mirror their first fight back in 1968 Incredible Hulk run, which initially introduced fans to the adamantium-coated mutant. Only this version of the fight was very clearly meant for a much more mature audience. After going on a rampage in the Big Apple, subsequently killing 800 people, Bruce Banner aka the Hulk was tried for mass murder and then executed publicly by S.H.I.E.L.D. They used the one thing they thought could kill him, a nuke. Of course, this didn't work out as planned. Enter Wolverine. Called in by Nick Fury himself, Logan is tasked with killing the indestructible Hulk. After gathering all the necessary information, he's sent out to Banner's last known location, Tibet. Tracking down the Hulk with relative ease, Logan is surprised to see that the giant isn't how he's been described at all. Surprisingly, he's forming complete sentences and even trying to talk Wolvie into seeking help himself. Being the big mouth he is, however, Wolverine ends this moment of peace by bringing up Betty, Banner's ex. Caught off guard and completely overpowered by the now beyond angry Hulk, Logan doesn't stand a chance, and here's where it happens. Lifting the mutant above his head, the Hulk begins to pull, ripping Logan's legs clean off and throwing them a good 4 miles upwards to the top of a nearby mountain. To make matters worse, once Wolverine managed to climb his way to the top of the mountain, he found Hulk waiting for him, his legs in hand with his question.
So which leg do I eat, Logan?
His logic here being similar to our previous entry slows Logan down no matter what. Luckily, the two are interrupted by the arrival of the Ultimate Universe's She-Hulk, Betty Ross. However, her sudden appearance doesn't save Logan from further embarrassment, as this entire back and forth ends with S.H.I.E.L.D. dropping an airstrike on the Hulk and all other parties present. To make matters worse, when Logan finally wakes, his body's been split up by S.H.I.E.L.D., leaving his living decapitated head with Fury to discuss what the hell just happened. And honestly, we'd like to know as well. Number 8. Growing old. Unfortunately for the old knucklehead, never-ending torture isn't the only issue his healing factor creates for him. Another major effect his gifts give him is, well, extreme old age. Coming in at our number 8 spot, we've got just that, specifically in a certain storyline. As we've mentioned, Logan is pretty old, nearing almost 200 years of age depending on which version of the character you look at. He's able to reach this incredible feat due to the extended longevity his healing factor provides, always appearing much younger than he actually is. This ability would be seen as a blessing until you've lived as long as Logan has. Watching as most of the people he has ever had any type of relationship with grow old and eventually die has to be extremely depressing for the mutant. But imagine how much worse it is when he watches all his friends die out. To make matters worse, the villains they dedicated their entire lives to stopping ended up winning. This, dear viewers, is the exact situation and world that Logan spends his days in within Mark Millar's influential Old Man Logan storyline. After years of getting defeated by the superheroes, supervillains across the country band together in a plan orchestrated by Red Skull to end every hero in one fell swoop. In just a single day, entire cities had fallen and the villains gained complete control, killing most if not all of their longtime rivals. Some heroes were confirmed dead while others just disappeared. One such hero was Wolverine, who was mentally broken that day, but that's something we'll get into later on this list, as it is truly one of the worst things to ever happen to him. 50 years after the heroes fell, American citizens find themselves under the rule of the remaining supervillains from that day, each of them having their own stake in the country that they rule over. Some villains may have died, but new ones quickly rose up to take their places. Wolverine, now simply going by Logan, spends his days as a pacifist farmer with his new wife and their 2 kids. They reside in Sacramento, or as it is now known, Hulkland. As you can guess, this piece of America and most of California now belongs to the Hulk. In this post-apocalyptic world, he seems to have lost his mind due to the gamma radiation that gave him his powers. Alongside the Hulk gang, a large inbred family of Hulks run the appropriately named land. They even charge rent to their citizens, hassling them or in Logan's case, beating them when the payment is late. In fact, the entire catalyst to the original Old Man Logan storyline is him not having enough to cover rent. This forces him to leave his family and go on a delivery run across the country with an older blind version of Hawkeye, in hopes of getting enough money to pay off his debts. After an entire adventure across the country and bringing enough money back, Logan rushes home to his family, only to find that the Hulk gang got tired of waiting and killed them all. This version of the Hulk is incredibly dark and really makes you feel for the hero. Quite literally, all of his friends are dead. Their bodies, gear, and even costumes are all put on display to the public. To further the pain, their legacies have been tarnished as the villains they fought against now run the country. And poor Logan can't do anything about it. Spending over 5 decades turning a blind eye and attempting to live a normal life as a pacifist, of course the darkness from his past manages to catch up with him. Number 7. Rubber Bones. Coming in at our number 7 spot, we have a familiar face for our MCU fans. None other than the Mad Titan Thanos. The main villain of the MCU's Infinity Saga posed quite a threat to the Avengers and the Guardians, but would you believe it if I told you he was much worse on the comic side of things? Within the pages of Jim Stalin and George Perez's original 1991 legendary Infinity Gauntlet event, Earth's mightiest heroes banded together to try to take Thanos down after he successfully snapped away half of the universe. Key word here being try. With all the stones in his possession, Thanos wipes the floor with the heroes, killing each in a more twisted way than the last. And all of that is to gain the attention of Lady Death, who he had fallen in love with. Some of the more memorable deaths include Cyclops, who had his head encased with a force field to lock away his optic beams, eventually leading to his suffocation. Following this, Cloak attempts to hold Thanos down within his cape, only for the Titan to burst out, exploding the poor hero from the inside out. Even the galactic hero Nova gets defeated with ease as he is deconstructed into hundreds of miniature cubes, but it's Wolverine who gets the worst death of them all. Somehow managing to get the drop on the villain, Logan sinks all 6 of his claws into the Titan's chest, only for him to smile before turning Wolvie's bones into spongy rubber. It's a horrendous sight to witness as the most vicious of Earth's defenders flop to the ground helpless. It's here that the unkillable mutant tastes death as the blow immediately ends him, leaving a terrifying Thanos grinning as he stands over Wolverine's mangled body. Thankfully, with everything going according to Adam Warlock's planning, Thanos eventually gets taken down and his daughter Nebula ends up reverting the damage her father had done with the stones before she herself was defeated. This revives Wolverine, adamantium bones and all. At the end of the day, it's undeniable that what the other heroes went through must have been painful, but what happened to Logan was just straight up vile. Number 6. Overloaded with disease. After that entry, you may be wondering what in the Marvel Universe is worse than immediate rubbery death. Well, coming in at our number 6 spot, there's getting pumped with every single terminal disease to ever exist. Although very useful, Logan's healing factor can often be blamed for most of the mutant's extreme suffering, basically making it so the mutant can take any and all levels of continuous torture. Although it makes it very difficult for him to be killed, that hasn't stopped the villains of the Marvel Universe. Instead, they've gotten rather creative as to how they'll handle the Canadian Berserker. By far, one of the most creative methods that we've ever seen comes to us from the Horsemen of Death, who within the pages of Rick Remender and Jerome Opena's beloved 2010 Uncanny X-Force put Logan through it. Tasked with killing the reborn and weakened boy version of Apocalypse, X-Force composed of Wolverine, Archangel, Psylocke, Phantom X, and Deadpool set out to the boy's location, the Moon. After their target somehow managed to escape on their first attempt, the team isn't playing around. It's full pedal to the metal. Unfortunately, this time around, Apocalypse and his servants are prepared as the team runs right into his final horsemen, a group handpicked by Apocalypse in case all else fails. As per usual, the horsemen have one individual representing each of the actual 4 horsemen of the apocalypse from Christianity: war, famine, pestilence, and death. This iteration of the group has some powerful members, but let's focus solely on Death, Sanjar Javid. The bastard son of the once king of Persia back in the year 325, Sanjar was well known and beloved by the people for his generosity, often found giving away expensive metal trinkets to his people. However, one fateful day while giving away some metal trinkets, Sanjar discovered his mutant ability, the power to transmit terminal disease when passing on different metals. Now facing the Wolverine, a man full of metal, I'm sure you can see where this is going. After managing to pull Death away from his teammates, Wolverine goes toe-to-toe against the villain, even managing to hold his own for a while. However, he makes a fatal mistake when he stabs his opponent with his infamous claws, immediately digging his own grave. Using the opportunity to its fullest, Death overloads Logan's healing factor with every terminal disease to ever exist, from cancer, dementia, lupus, coronary disease, and many, many more. The mutant is only able to escape this torture when Phantom X uses his mutant ability of misdirection to snatch Logan away, replacing him with one of Death's own allies, who, mind you, immediately dies when getting the same treatment, or as I like to call it, the Logan Special. With that, we're about halfway into our list now, but before we get into our next entry, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. Number 5. Killing all of his kids. With Logan's insane healing factor covering for him, there aren't many ways to actually hurt the mutant. Unless, as we've been over, you possess the ability to hold a planet together, bend reality, or afflict someone with literally any disease. So if you really want to hurt the mutant, you have to go for the one thing that isn't going to heal: his mind and mental state. Coming in at our number 5 spot, that is exactly what happened, but with a very, very dark twist. One that revealed Wolverine had just unknowingly killed many of his children. This was all made possible by an intricate revenge plot created by the Red Right Hand, a group made up of family members of Logan's numerous victims throughout his many years. If you want to know just how intricate the group's plan was, listen to this. Before the final ploy with his children, they actually sent Logan to hell and even got him possessed by a demon, nearly forcing his friends to kill him. It's pretty clear that the Red Right Hand has a grudge against old Wolvie. After tormenting him in secret in the earlier issues of Jason Aaron's run on Wolverine back in 2010, Logan finally pulls back the curtain on who exactly they are when he storms into what looks to be their base of operations. Waiting for him at the front door is the first of 5 never-before-seen mutants. With a near gorilla-like mutation that appears to give him super strength, the first protector of sorts rushes into battle. Though it looks as if the fight's going in the enemy Cannonfoot's favor, as we soon learn he was no match for the Canadian, and this pattern repeats itself throughout the next few issues. We learn the tragic story of a Red Right Hand member and why they hate Logan, right as Logan kills one of the mutants, getting closer and closer to the ones who started it all. After finally killing the last of the mutants, Wolverine walks into the conference room where the human members of the group have been watching this whole spectacle. There he finds that all of them are dead. Each of them had committed suicide by drinking some sort of poison. Turning to leave, Logan stops as a pre-recorded video from the leader of the group plays on the screens around him. After basically explaining who he and the Red Right Hand are and what they're all about, the elderly man drops one final bombshell on the mutant. He informs him that everyone he had killed to reach this room was a child of his he never even knew existed. This breaks the Canadian as he literally falls to his knees, and for a while after, he refuses to go back home. He even takes the bodies of his kids, burying each of them next to their mothers. This process is extremely painful for Logan because not only does he need to bury his own children, he must also track down all of his previous lovers, only to find that they too are dead. Eventually, after some time alone, self-reflection, an act of heroism, and a moral boost from his friends, Logan was able to recover and bring himself back from what he had unknowingly done and go back to being a hero, the best there is. Number 4. Death of Wolverine. To follow that extremely depressing entry, at our number 4 spot, we've got the death of Wolverine. Yeah, you heard that right, death isn't the worst thing that has happened to Wolverine, but it's definitely up there. After losing his healing factor and having years of foes and adamantium poisoning catching up to him, the 2014 miniseries Death of Wolverine does something no comic has actually ever done. It leaves the hero actually to die. Following his death, Logan actually stays dead for a total of 3 years before popping up once more in 2018 when his body goes missing, causing a spark in the superhuman community as the hunt for Wolverine begins. But today, let's focus on the mutant's actual death, which, although sad and sure to have been painful, is the best death someone like Wolverine could hope for. While hunting down who could have put a bounty on his now mortal self, Wolverine tracks everything back to Dr. Abraham Cornelius, one of the twisted scientists who was involved in creating him. In his new hidden lab, Dr. Cornelius is doing just what he did to Wolvie all those years ago, bonding adamantium to the skeletons of new patients. In an attempt to stop the sick procedure at the last moment, Wolverine slashes the adamantium tanks open, causing him to be enveloped in the molten metal. Even while covered, Wolverine chases after the scientist on foot, making sure he is dead before eventually stopping right at the cliff he had chased Cornelius to. Dropping down to his knees and lowering his hands, Logan enjoys the sunset one last time. After thinking back to his beautiful and long life, he finally says enough and his body gives way. Weighed down and suffocating on the now hardened metal encasing him, he dies. Though extremely painful, it's a fitting end for the Canadian, giving him his much-needed rest. Number 3. Ripped out skeleton. As we break into our top 3 worst things ever to happen to Wolvie, our number 3 spot features a classic scene coming from Chris Claremont's world-renowned X-Men series. If you couldn't tell already, yes, this entry is him getting his adamantium ripped right out. To be honest, I'm surprised that a situation like this hadn't arisen in all the years Magneto and Logan faced off before. After all, Magneto can control metal, and Wolverine is quite literally a guy with a fully metal-coated skeleton. Whatever the case is, it finally happens in X-Men 1991 issue number 25. With Eric posing a great threat to the planet following his latest attack, a worldwide EMP blast, Professor Xavier puts together a team to finally take him out once and for all. Consisting of Wolverine, Jean Grey, Gambit, Quicksilver, Rogue, and himself, they head out to space to face off with the Master of Magnetism. Of course, things don't go as planned, and finally fed up with the feral Wolverine, Magneto snaps and uses his powers to rip the adamantium right out of the mutant's body. Yeah, ouch. The whole experience leaves Wolverine in a seriously injured state as the liquid adamantium that slowly leaks out of his body begins to harden, creating multiple large spikes jutting out of his body. Logan is only able to survive the attack thanks to Jean consoling his mind and doing her best to hold his body together. It's only after the X-Men make it back into the Earth's atmosphere that Wolvie stabilizes and is able to start recovering naturally himself. However, with that being said, the loss of his adamantium slows down Logan's healing factor for quite a while, due to it being severely overworked. It's because of this that Logan learns he actually has bone claws, and without a heightened healing factor to cover for him, boy do they hurt sliding out. The loss of his adamantium leaves Logan lost and confused for a while, that is until the villain Apocalypse comes around, but that's a story for another day. Number 2. Killing the X-Men. Coming up next at our number 2 spot, we're going back to the horribly beautiful world of Old Man Logan. Remember how we said he was mentally broken the terrible day the villains won? Well, as promised, here it is with its very own entry. We've already seen Wolverine unknowingly kill his children on this list, but this time around he kills a family much closer to him, the X-Men. More specifically, every mutant in the Xavier Institute. And the whole thing was puppeteered by a single supervillain, the classic Spider-Man villain, Mysterio. You see, the night the supervillains of Old Man Logan's universe decided to band together, Wolverine was on standby alongside Jubilee, watching as distress calls from just about every superhuman group began to pop up on the screen. Before they were even given a chance to react, however, the mansion exploded, immediately killing Jubilee, and the villains rushed in. With his entire X-Men family team in danger alongside the mutant kids that were present that night, Wolverine begins to let loose, slicing and dicing every villain in sight. He easily kills formidable foes such as Green Goblin, Omega Red, Scorpion, Bullseye, and many more. It was only after Logan had ensured they were all dead that the illusion fell. Instead, he had murdered every X-Men present in the manor. Mysterio taunts the fallen hero, asking him if he seriously believed he could kill this many villains. As Logan looks around in a state of shock, Mysterio thanks him on behalf of the entire criminal community for a job well done. After all, he had just killed some of the most powerful heroes around. Then, before Logan could gather himself, Mysterio teleported away. Afterwards, not knowing what to do with himself, Wolverine walks blindly until he arrives at some train tracks. Despite knowing this won't put him out of his misery, Logan lies on the tracks right as an oncoming freighter train arrives. Logan accepts the pain as something he deserves, almost like a punishment. And once the train completely passes over him, he stands up and makes the final decision to put away the claws and bury the Wolverine name forever. This was truly the night Wolverine died. Number 1. Sabretooth. With yet another depressing Old Man Logan entry, we finally reached the very top of the list. So, without further ado, at our number 1 spot for the worst things to ever happen to Wolverine, we have Sabretooth. Just Sabretooth. His existence alone is the definitive worst thing to ever happen to Wolvie, but just give us a second to explain. Wolverine and Sabretooth have a history dating as far back as Logan can remember and further. To no one's surprise, every time the two run into each other, things have gotten messy. It makes sense as to why. I mean, the two are basically the same person, just living different lives. They are like a reflection to each other of what they could be. Both have their insane healing factor, claws, long lives, their involvement with Weapon X, and the list goes on forever. But let's get back on track with all the terrible things Sabretooth has done to Wolverine to make him worthy of the top spot. This video could go on forever if we listed everything that Creed has ever done to ruin Logan's life, so instead we'll start with some of the most twisted acts Sabretooth does for his Weapon X brother every year: birthday gifts. You see, every year, Creed tracks down Logan and ruins whatever he has going for himself during that time. The first and most infamous instance of this would be when Creed hunted Logan down to a remote region in Canada where Logan had settled down alongside his wife, Silver Fox. Thanks to Creed, in less than a day, that entire life was ruined. By the time Logan returned from work, his wife was already dead, her body mutilated on the floor, and her dried blood spelling out happy birthday. Creed didn't even give poor Logan a second to process what he was looking at before he leapt in and started a brawl with the mutant. Throughout the years, Creed has continued this birthday tradition no matter the time nor place, usually sticking to a simple but very bloody brawl. The sometime villain also enjoys killing Logan's allies or just nearby innocents. Even when Sabretooth went straight and joined Logan's Weapon X team in an attempt to be a good guy for once, he still let himself go wild the day of Logan's birthday. Creed even set up a timer to remind him when the day started and ended. Of course, once a year isn't enough to torture the poor soul, so Creed likes to occasionally drop by whenever he can, inciting chaos in poor Logan's life. Like the time when he chained Logan to a spaceship and crashed them both into a distant planet, or when he killed one of Logan's closest allies, Psylocke, just because he could. In short, anytime Logan finds any sort of stability of happiness, it means Sabretooth will be dropping in for a visit soon. Well, that's about all we've got for this one today, folks, but tell us, what do you think about our rankings? Would you put any of these experiences above another? Do you think we've missed something? As always, we here at Plot Armor Comics love having these sort of conversations, so be sure to let us know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Morse Code, and I'll catch you all in the next video.